So I wanted to share my digital art process using the latest piece I've made titled Night Owls. I'm only going to be using the default brushes in Procreate. I wanted to try doing this piece in Procreate because I needed to find out what colors would work well together and what I was sort of imagining versus what I could actually manifest. So I was just only trying to put it into Procreate to get an idea about the colors and such, and ended up finishing like an entire piece. But I will be doing this in my sketchbook. I just got a sketchbook. Where did it go? Right here. I just got the sketchbook. It's still in the film. I've been wanting to buy the sketchbook for a while. I really like the size of it. But yeah, it's going to be like a double spread and probably using alcohol markers and paint pens. But I didn't want to waste the materials by trying it out in my sketchbook first, so I just decided to throw it into Procreate. And I really liked the way it turned out. I feel like I'm finally finding my groove with digital art. And so I thought I would share it with you guys and also document it for myself to look back on later. So without further ado, let's get into it. So I've just got a picture of my sketchbook that I imported into Procreate, and I'm just rearranging the owls until I get a composition I like. I drew in a little ribbon at the back to sort of create flow and to capture the night sky. And here I'm just outlining the owls with the dry ink brush, which is in the inking tab of the Procreate brushes. I'm just trying to capture like the overall shape of the owl and the major details, not going into too much depth. Using the dry ink brush again for the ribbon in the background. I end up changing the color and the sizing of it a little bit later, and I'm just filling in the feet of that center owl. And then I'll have to go back and get the feet of the other owl. And here I'm just adjusting the scale of the owls until I think that it is, a strong enough composition, and then adding some text to the background to make it, just a little bit more cutesy. Little adjustments here and there, and working with the color palette. So I lower the opacity of the background ribbon, and then I backfilled it with black and created some variation in the colors there with the purple. Tested out one of the luminance brushes with the stars, and I didn't like it. Here I thought that I was going to have sort of like this bluish glowy outline around the night ribbon, but I decided against it ultimately. Now I'm working on color blocking the first owl. I started with the top right one, and this initial color blocking was based on the reference photo. I ended up hating it and taking it away. I was just sort of trying to get a feel for it. Ultimately didn't like it. So I moved on to the next owl, which was the bottom right owl, and played with the colors there. I ended up liking the result much more. I used the gouache painting brush to create the texture effect at the front, and for the main color blocking, I just used the syrup inking brush, sometimes the studio pen, but mostly the inking brush, which I used to add those gold details in the wings. I ended up not liking having 3 rows, so I got rid of the middle row. Makes it less cluttered looking, and just did some shading again with the gouache brush in darker shades of the main color. So back to the ribbon, I started using the Nebula brush, which is also in the luminescence tab of the Procreate default brushes, and I just added some sort of airbrush dots for the brighter stars, and I went in manually and drew every little pinprick star with the studio pen brush because the syrup kind of has like a triangular shape. I wanted it to be more round. And then I'll go back onto the airbrush glows and add in the stars. Now I'm just color blocking the rest of the owl, starting with the one in the top left and then moving on to the center one. Adding minor details here and there, just trying to get a feel of the balance of the colors with the color palette I selected, and sort of trying to pick up on colors and other parts of the piece. And then I did some shading with airbrushing to create the variation. And so it's not just a solid colors. Going over the feathers of the gold owl with the darker blue airbrush. And later I'll do the texturing with the gouache. Just trying to get the base layer down at a point where I like it. And here on the top right owl, I think I do start using the gouache brush to texture that out with the darker blue and some details with the turquoise. Moving on to the perching owl in the bottom left, I added some yellow textures to him and sort of was just trying to bring out the feathers. Once again, I forgot the feet on the owl in the top right, so I had to go back and color those. And then I moved on to the top left owl, the soaring owl. And I just did some cleaning up around the edges and some I think I used gouache. I think that's gouache. Yeah, I did some highlighting with the gouache brush and did some cleanup while I was at it. Changed the face a little bit, added some shading and some shading to the feathers on the tail. And just a little bit more definition to the feathers in general with some finishing line work here. The center owl is practically where I wanted him to be. I just needed to clean up the tail, kind of left it unfinished because it was behind the ribbon. And here I am just cleaning up my my outline for the night sky ribbon. I liked black, so I stayed with black, but I didn't like the dry ink brush texture, so I ended up using the syrup brush to make it a smoother line. And then I thought the owls didn't stand out enough, so I threw some shadows, some back shadows, and some highlights over where the night sky is to sort of make them pop a little bit. I used black and purple for the shading and gold for the highlights, and then I moved on to the text, kind of playing around with the colors here, starting with the base of purple and then messing with the outline color to make it stand out more because I wanted it visible. And then I went in with a black airbrush to change the variations a little bit, change the outline color to the blue, and I thought that was too dark. It didn't pop enough with the background, so then I decided to outline it with gold. And I liked the way that looked, but it still didn't pop enough for me. So you'll see I'll go back and I'll sort of create little shadows on the gold outline with that orangish color. And I think it gives enough popping. I do end up changing the background color too, though, because it just wasn't the right hue to set the picture. And I had to add some little cartoony stars. I really liked the one in the bottom right, so I wanted to kind of carry that throughout and sort of lighten up the piece a bit. I did the base color of like the cream, and then I went in and made it darker, and then I outlined it in a brighter yellow, and then I outlined it in an orange because like the text, it wasn't standing out enough. And of course, there's got to be some artistic blobs here and there. At first, I thought I was just going to do like your plain round ones, but I thought it'd be cooler to do like more oblong ones to sort of show the movement of the stars and like the direction that they're sort of pinging around in. And then the one that was caught kind of has like a splattery look because his movement has been stopped. And then I thought the owls needed to stand out even more, so I decided to outline all the owls in yellow, which was a bold move, but ultimately I think it works for the sort of semi-realistic, cartoony vibe of the piece. And there I am changing the background color to a little bit of a darker, like lilac. And then just adding a few more splashes here and there. I thought the splashes were kind of disappearing into the background too much, so I added that orange underglow that I did on the text. And then I decided I need even more of these little gold movement blobs. So I added some to the owls that were flying, and one to the smiling owl in the top right, just to sort of make him stand out. That top right corner needed some more stuff. I added a little bit of texture to the background because I thought it was just too solid, not enough depth. And that's why I added more blobs, but this time white, because I wanted them to sort of be recessed into the background more than the yellow ones. I added a white underline to the owl blobs because I wanted them to stand out more. And then I changed my signature color to match the whole thing, and that was it. Oops. Yeah, I realized my glasses are putting off a big glare from the window. So I'll just take them off this last bit. Well, thank you for making it this far. If you enjoyed watching the video and my process, and if you like this content, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe. It really helps me reach more people and have my channel grow. I really appreciate you for making it this far, and stay creative. Thank you for tuning in. Let's not wear those. Art on. And art on. I really appreciate you for coming this far. Bless your art. Bless your art. I need a slogan or something to say at the end of the videos. Art on. Bless your art. That sounds just really religious, and I'm not religious in that sense. Keep calm and art on. That's really cheesy. Stay creative. That's a good one. I feel like somebody else might have already used that. Stay creative. I really appreciate you for coming along with me. That sounds weird.